I'm Jenny. I've got Dylan with me, and we're going to discuss ways in which we can consider the environment. Dylan, we're told that we need to dispose of computers and computer peripherals properly.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, the first reason I think is because there are some really pretty exotic and pretty toxic metals in most computer devices. And if you just put those computer devices on a landfill somewhere, eventually something's going to break and something's going to corrode, and that those toxic metals are going to leak into the landfill and therefore into the ground and into the groundwater and start to poison people. So computers are not just what you see on the outside. It's not just plastic and glass or aluminium. There's a lot of stuff that goes on inside that needs to be dealt with pretty carefully. And so it's not right, it's not good enough to just toss it out into the dustbin. You've got to take it to some place where there are experienced professionals who can take everything apart and dispose of it correctly and in an environmentally safe manner. The other reason, though, is just cost. We know the old adage, reduce, reuse, recycle, and a lot of that is going to bring down the cost of making computers. So the plastic in your computer, let's reuse that plastic to make another computer. The glass is wonderfully recyclable. And every computer screen is made up of glass, really high quality glass that is very easy to recycle. So it's not just a case of, well, we need to save the planet by using fewer resources. We can also start to save money by doing these things in a responsible way.
Now, this might be a bit of an unfair follow-on question, but where do you do this?
There are companies that will come and collect your old computer equipment. They particularly service large corporates. They'll come with trucks and take all the old computers away. And in some cases, they will not recycle them immediately in terms of breaking them apart into their components. They'll actually take those computers and give them or sell them to other people that need those computers, like schools or organizations who don't want to buy or can't afford to buy the latest and greatest. You can go to places like Pick n Pay, for example, that are starting to put out bins for these kinds of components. Light bulbs, batteries, hard plastics. So look out for those sort of supermarket chains in your area, and if they're not offering that service, start to ask them, why aren't you offering the service? Maybe it's things like companies like Incredible Connection. Maybe it's a service that they need to start offering if they're not. So perhaps the place where you're buying your computer equipment, as a citizen, you can start to hold them accountable to say, well, I'm giving you money to buy a new device. I expect you, in this process, to take my old device. And I know that is something that Apple stores are now doing. And they're incentivizing that by actually giving you a little bit of money or giving you a little bit of a discount on your new device if you bring them the old device so that they can deal with that in a proper way.
That's a great approach. Okay, now let's look at energy.
Okay.
Do computers use a lot of energy? And if they do, what sort of energy management should we apply?
Computers use quite a lot of energy, actually. Many new computers will come with software that will tell you how much energy your computer is using. And one piece of software I've seen equates the energy your computer is using to how many light bulbs that's equivalent to. So I think the first step is just to be conscious of the fact that your computer uses quite a lot of energy. Mobile phones and tablets use a little bit less energy. They're not as hungry for power as desktop and laptops are, but they certainly do require energy. So be conscious of the fact that this is not a free lunch. This is not, you're not getting something for nothing here. In terms of what to do about that is to start making decisions about, well, what performance you need at what time. Again, most new computers will come with a software that allows you to degrade the performance you're going to get from your device. The lower the performance you're going to get, the less power that device is going to need. Now, if you are doing video editing or you are working on a very large spreadsheet and you require lots of computing power, well then by all means, set your processor to be on maximum. But if you're surfing the web or you are doing a simple Word document,
You don't
you
need
don't need the whole processor. So at that time, well, why not just limit the amount of power your computer is consuming? You're not going to get the same performance, but you're probably not going to notice because you're not demanding the same performance. One of the pieces of a computer that takes the most power is the screen.
Oh,
And so if you are in a nicely lit area, you don't necessarily need to have your screen on maximum brightness. So be conscious of that as well. You don't always have to have your screen to the max. Bring it down. It's not just saving the power, it's not just going to save the battery of your computer as well. It's probably also better for your eyes.
Yes.
The backlighting in screens is not that good for our eyes. So the less that we need of that, we're saving the planet and we're saving our
Yeah.
eyes.
So what Dylan is talking about is really just being responsible users in a number of different ways. I want to talk about carbon dioxide emissions because I think this is something that we don't really associate
No,
with computers.
it's not like they've got a little engine with an exhaust pipe.
It's like puffing out noxious fumes into the environment. But I did a little bit of research and I discovered that just to build a computer, it takes about 1.8 tons of different chemicals and fossil fuels and water.
Wow.
That's just per computer. That I'm not sure about the smaller computing devices.
Sure.
It's also said that every single year, about 35 million tons of carbon dioxide is poured out into the atmosphere each year from the collective number of computers that we've got. And what really gave me a fright was to discover that, well, one study said that around 300 million tons of carbon dioxide a year goes into the atmosphere just from surfing the internet.
My goodness.
So that innocent little activity that we like to take part in is not really just a matter of surfing the internet, but there's a couple of consequences as well. Now the question is, do you know of any ways that we can reduce carbon dioxide emissions?
Well, I think there are a couple of ways, and we've spoken about the one, and that's to limit or to reduce your requirement for that energy. I think the second is for us as a collective society. Now, this is not really something that we can do as individuals other than start to put pressure on those who are making these kinds of decisions. How are we generating all this electricity? If we're generating electricity with fossil fuels, then we're going to be emitting carbon dioxide. And so if our computers are using that electricity, they are in effect releasing or emitting carbon dioxide. So we need to start changing our power grid, and we need to start generating our electricity with renewables and technologies like nuclear. Carbon sequestration, where you take the carbon dioxide from a power plant, from the burning of fossil fuels, and you store it in a tank underground. Also, it's a possibility. We're still emitting carbon dioxide, but not into the atmosphere. So that's the second way. Let's put pressure as a society on making this move. It's going to be difficult to do it, but once it's done, this move to renewable energy sources. And then I think the third thing that we can do, and this we can do as individuals, is to offset.
Yeah.
So we're putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. That's not so good. But we can be planting trees. And we can be making concerted efforts to conserve the trees that we've got. Now, we're doing this in Johannesburg, one of the most tree-lined cities in the world, and we're really lucky to be in such an environment. But there are many cities around the world who don't have the kind of treescape that we do. So as individuals, we can be planting trees, and we can be making sure that we're not cutting down the trees that we do have. Not just in the Amazon rainforest, which is far away from most of us, but in our own backyards. And I think there's other things that we can do that are not just directly related to our use of technology, but we can be driving less. your car emits more CO2 than your computer.
Yeah,
So
certainly.
are you able to change your behavior? Are you able to change your habits and your lifestyle to not emit carbon dioxide as much in other areas, even though the computer is still emitting? Is it emitting less than the other areas of your life?
Well, cat learners, you are the leaders of the future, and you're also going to be very, very powerful users of technology. So I think while you can manage your use of that technology quite significantly, I also think you should be the ones that manage the energy resources and lobby for things like trees and various other things that we've spoken about here. And we'll leave it at that today. Thank you.